let's move on to this, shall we? We're going to talk for a second here about, now that we're 2/3 of the way through the year, about to hit September, we're getting in now into the award season stretch, but we did this video the other day about the movies that have come out this year that deserve to do so much better than they did. That combined with the fact that we've been talking about Borderlands recently, and I've been saying, Borderlands is not the worst movie of the year, to which I've had so many people write to me say, well, John, then what are the worst movies of the year? So I thought, being a Friday, being that we're heading into September, then we would take a minute here and I would talk about my top 5 worst films of the year. Now, I want to point out, we're talking about larger scale films. We're not talking about, I'm sure I could come up with 100 other terrible films, or we're talking about small little indie films that never saw the light of day. We're talking about big major films. And I'm going to give you what the 5 worst films of the year. Then we're going to hear from Chris. Let Jonathan throw in some thoughts. We'll hear from you guys. But here's my 5 worst films of the year so far. Coming in at number 5, and this is going to surprise some people because I know there's a bunch of people who like this film. But Ghostbusters Frozen Empire to me was horrible.
Ooh.
You know what? When I first saw it, I said, well, it's okay, because I thought the first 2 acts were abysmal. But I said, I think the 3rd act kind of saves it a bit. Yeah, I watched it again. The 3rd act didn't save it. It's a terrible movie. And I say this as somebody who absolutely loved Ghostbusters Afterlife. I loved that movie. And so I was so excited for this one, but it was dull. It was drab. It committed the same sin as that all-female Ghostbusters movie did, which was it just relied completely on member berries. Like, homages and some nostalgia here and there is good, but it was just it's just relying on it. And it's like, have none of these characters learned anything in the last couple of years? Have none of these characters evolved at all? And even the big ultimate threat, it made no logical sense. And so I think this is going to be the most controversial one on this, because I know there's a bunch of people who like the film. And if you like the film, awesome. I celebrate that you liked it. I wish I liked it too, because I loved Afterlife so much. But to me, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is the number 5 worst movie of the year. Going into number 4, the aforementioned Borderlands. Again, I said I don't think it's the worst film of the year. I think there are 3 others that are worse, but it's not good. This is so not a good movie. And I say that from the perspective of it has absolutely nothing to do with how true or not true it is to the video game. I don't give 2 squirts of piss whether or not it's true to the video game or not. I could give a flying fuck. All I care about is, did you make a good movie? And this is not a good movie. This is a bad, and you got Academy Award winners in this film. You got arguably the 2nd greatest actress of all time in Cate Blanchett in this movie. You've got Academy Award winner Jamie Lee Curtis, who is an icon and fabulous and all this kind of stuff. And I forget the little girl's name, but she was really
Ariana Greenblatt.
Greenblatt, right? Totally charming and lovable in this movie. I had no problem with her and all that kind of stuff. But it's just that the story was so bad and the dialogue was so bad. It had its moments. It had its moments. Plenty enough so that to me, it's not the worst movie of the year. But it's still bad enough for me that it is on the list. So my number 4 worst movie of the year is Borderlands. All right. So what 3 movies, pray tell, did I think were worse than Borderlands? Well, let's start with that. At my number 3 worst movie of the year, a movie I actually had some excitement for, The Strangers Chapter 1. Dear God. Listen, morbid horror can work if you make it thrilling. There was nothing thrilling about this movie. It was just these horrible, stupid, awful people doing horrible, stupid, awful things to other stupid, horrible people. I mean, wow, maybe that was pushing it too far. But there's
kind of how I felt about Rings of Power Season 1.
There you go. Absolutely no thrills, no tension, no suspense, never wondering what happens next. I didn't care. I literally did not care what happened to any of these people on screen. It was such a poorly, brutally executed movie that it takes the number 3 spot on my list. So far, to recap, my number 5 worst movie is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. My number 4 worst movie is Borderlands. My number 3 is The Strangers Chapter 1. My number 2 is a movie I was beyond excited about because it was being made by a filmmaker I really like with content matter that I really liked and a cast that I loved, including my boy, Henry Cavill. Argylle. Sack of shit is too kind of a phrase to address to this movie. This is not only the worst movie that the director has ever done, that Henry Cavill has ever done, that Sam Rockwell has ever done, that Howard has ever done, that Samuel Jackson has ever done. This is just and at every moment, every new scene, I think, well, at least we've hit rock bottom now. And then the next scene would happen and it would be even worse. I'm sorry, are they ice skating on a steel floor? But John, it's covered in oil. That's not how it works. How could a movie that looks so good be so incredibly bad? The twists were terrible, and then they added twists on top of the twist to make it seem like, ooh, look how cutting edge we are. No, you're just cutting throats. You're awful. You're terrible. You should go away and die. I'm talking about the movie, not anybody involved with it. It was so bad, and it broke my heart because Henry deserved better. And so Argylle is my number 2 worst film of the year. Just a horrible, horrible garbage film. That leads us into our number 1. The number 1 worst film of the year. Is there any surprise? Is there anybody out there that cannot guess what our worst film of the year is? Our worst film of the year is Madam Web.
I thought this was going to be a trick question.
Now, there are going to be some people. John, where's Rebel Moon? Oh, Rebel Moon would be on this list. I'm not counting Netflix films.
Oh.
I'm not counting Netflix.
It's almost my entire list.
Right? And that's fine. That's fine. But believe you me, if any of these, if I was counting movies I did not see in theaters, I would have Rebel Moon on this list. I would absolutely have Rebel Moon on, but I'm not. So I got to be fair. Rebel Moon, no. Madam Web. I remember about
before Madam Web,
3 or 4 months after I saw it in theaters, I decided, because it came out on streaming, and Anne hadn't seen it yet, and I was like, it can't be as bad as I'm remembering it being. I'm going to watch it again. It was worse. How this movie, like you take a movie like Argylle, it executed terribly, but you know what? I could see why it got greenlit. Like if I was looking at it on paper and thinking about that movie in theory, it could have turned out to be something. I don't see how Madam Web ever got a green light. There should have been 75 points of failure where somebody in that studio went, this is a problem. And then in the next scene, that's a real problem. And then in the next scene, oh, no audience is going to buy this. And there were like 75 points of failure that anybody with a spine at Sony should have been able to stand up and say, no, we cannot greenlight this movie until these things get fixed. These are clearly terrible and completely awful. Now, as my special mention, my honorable mention, I will throw in there Rebel Moons Part 1 and 2. Truly 2 of the worst films I've seen in years. Again, I don't qualify them for my list because I did not see them in theaters. It was a Netflix movie, all that kind of stuff. But I still at least have to give them a mention as some of the worst cinema I've ever seen in my life. I don't think Rebel Moon joins my unholy trinity of Battlefield Earth, Highlander 2, and Catwoman, which I still contend are the 3 worst wide-release Hollywood-produced films of all time. But man, Rebel Moons 1 and 2, give them a run for their money. They're so awful. So for me, these are the worst films I think we've had so far this year. Chris, how does your list look? Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Gametime. My wife Ann and I love going to events, whether they're comedy shows, concerts, an LA Lakers game. I mean, just the other night we went to go see Ronnie Chang and it was awesome. We love having these new experiences and new memories. And our sponsor Gametime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away. Because prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the show start time. With killer last minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying event tickets. I couldn't believe how easy and most importantly, intuitively, the entire app works. Finding the event I was looking for couldn't have been easier. The way it lays out the map of the venue, letting you know exactly where the seats are that you're looking for, and how easy the process was to choose and buy those tickets. So don't worry if you think you're too late to get tickets to that big event you and your friend want to go to. They have last minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. So guys, take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Campea for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CAMPEA, C-A-M-P-E-A, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Well, I've got a lot of the same as you. Because
Okay.
I've got Madam Web and Argylle on here. Because Argylle did just infuriate me.
Oh, so infuriating.
To quote my friend Mia Topalian, I hate this movie. I'm mad it was made. I'm mad at everyone in it, and everyone should be punished.
They should all be punished.
And I went, it can't be that bad. And it was. It
so
was.
bad.
It was so terrible. Madam Web, obviously not a great movie. It serves as a beautiful 2000s time capsule of what superhero movies used to be.
Right.
But
That's a very good description.
it's an even worse version of them.
Yeah.
But still,
It's an
it
even
still is
worse
like, oh
version.
yeah, this is what we kind of used to do. And then I've got all Netflix on here because I figured you guys wouldn't go into that just so we wouldn't have redundant lists. All right. Mother of the Bride with Brooke Shields and Miranda Cosgrove.
I just remember seeing the trailer for that and I thought, this has to be a joke. Why would anybody watch this? But I never heard
terrible.
anybody talk about it. Was it
It's
that bad?
So bad. Everyone is in a different movie. Benjamin Bratt is fighting for his life to just do something good. And the entire time you're like, you're great. Why are you here? He is in a very different film. It's awful. Another one, similar vein, is Lindsay Lohan's Irish Wish. Many of you may have seen my husband ranting about this video on the internet. This movie is so bad. It's so bad. It makes so little sense.
I gotta see it now. It's
one
on
of-
Netflix.
Yeah, it's one of those tropey things of, oh, I'm the nerdy romantic girl who's in love with this guy and he's never even noticed me. And it's Lindsay Lohan. We're like, yeah, no one's noticed you, babe. And she makes a wish and
As
now
one
she's
does.
the one who's engaged to him. And oh my gosh, it's amazing. But what if they're not meant to be together? It's terrible. It's a horrible movie.
Sounds like a
There's like a
Hallmark
saint
movie.
in it. It's weird.
You know what it sounds like to me a little bit?
What?
What was that totally horrible movie? It was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with the girl, the redhead girl from Riverdale and the guy who played Aladdin in the Aladdin movie. And remember, it's like,
Oh my God, that
he's
was
a-
on my worst movies list then.
Oh,
I can't even
that
remember
year.
it.
Yeah, I can't
it
even
was a
remember the name of
freebie
it. That was
movie. It
horrible.
Hideous. That movie was awful. And then I have Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2 on here because, dear God, I had to suffer through both of those. Even Logan admitted that Part 2 was trash. Even
No.
Logan Peets hates Rebel Moon Part 2. He is
Wow.
still very excited to watch the director's cut of it.
Oh my god.
I know. He's so nice and cute, guys.
He's
He's
so
really nice and
nice
cute
and
and funny.
cute.
His taste in movies is questionable. But man, those are mine.
Jonathan, you got any that really stand out to
I
you?
mean,
that
these
would-
all hit. Pretty much the same for
Yeah.
everybody. Unfortunately, I haven't seen The Crow yet, so I don't know if that would have made my list.
I did get around to seeing it.
Okay.
Not good.
So is that like your number?
But,
Would
but
that be
not
like?
up- no, not on my list.
Okay.
Not a good movie. Not a good movie, but like the violence was hyper. It was impressive choreography and the violence it was definitely grimmer and darker, but overall not a good movie, but I don't include it on my list. I didn't think it was that awful. Not good, but not that
Well,
awful.
the good news is we still have a few more months of this year to add more to the list. So, don't get
Some people are mentioning long legs. There are people who loved long
Yeah.
legs. Loved it. I did not. But I didn't. But I thought it was interesting enough that it wouldn't make this list.
Yeah, because it wasn't like, I wouldn't say it was poorly executed, poorly acted. It wasn't like, oh my God, these scenes are okay. These movies that you guys listed, I literally was almost like blushing or sweating because I was like embarrassed that I was watching it. You know what I mean? Like where you
The
start to like
secondhand
feel like
cringe.
shame,
Yeah.
like I'm embarrassed and no one's even around. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Ah.
that's what they into.
Anyway, guys, question is for you. We are 2/3 of the way through the movie year now. We're heading into that final stretch where a lot of the award season movies are going to come out. And as a result, next week, we're going to talk what we think are the best movies so far. Because again, a lot of the big Oscar films usually come out in this next window of the year. So we'll talk about that next week. But what do you think have been the worst films you've seen in theaters this year? Or heck, even on streaming? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts.